Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06 on a Thursday morning. Oh, we're so close to that weekend. I can taste it. Thanks for joining us. Did I say 8:06? Did I just say 8:06?
You did.
I guess I'm jumping us a little closer to the weekend than I thought.
I was like, wow, we're almost done.
It is in fact 5:06. It is 8:06. It's a time change problem. I'm sorry. I'm on a different time zone. I'm actually in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now. Coming up at 7:05, John Solomon, Just the News, give us the latest on the Biden stuff. You saw Devon Archer gave an exclusive interview to Tucker Carlson. Boy, how's Fox News feeling right now? Tucker Carlson got the exclusive. Devon Archer will give some details on that. Also, 7:35, Dr. Marty McCary from Johns Hopkins. Did you see they're trying to bring the masks back?
Yeah.
We saw the doctor on CNN saying, we're seeing a little bit of an increase in COVID. We better bring the masks back.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we saw that with Barbie movie.
We'll talk about that. Yeah. Also, and the discovery of an illegal Chinese lab that has 1,000 mice all infected with horrible diseases. But I'm sure everything's fine. I'm sure that just follow the science. Everything's fine there. 8:05, Peter Schweitzer will be joining us. And then at 8:35, oh, looky there. It's Molly Hemingway. Molly Hemingway from The Federalist will be joining us. Good to talk to Molly as well. So there's a lot we're covering. It's one of those days where sort of the pendulum's like, okay, the Jack Smith thing is done. Everybody's had their say about it. We certainly had our say about it. The charges against Donald Trump, and everyone rolls their eyes, and they saw that it was an attempt to sort of change the subject. But guess what? The subject is back right where it needs to be, and that is the Biden scandals. And we've got full coverage of the Biden scandals throughout this morning. But I do want to start with that Chinese lab I just referred to. Again, Dr. Marty McCary will be joining us to shed some medical, scientific, educated light on it at 7:35. But before we get to that, let's have the uneducated take on it, which is just, what the hell are they thinking? This is in Fresno, California. How much of this sentence needs to be unpacked and marveled at the outrageous, horrific stupidity that is going on in this country right now, right beneath our noses. Are you ready? Here we go. Chinese lab operating illegally in Fresno found 1,000 bioengineered and infected mice with diseases including HIV, E. coli, malaria, and COVID-19. But don't be afraid, because mice infected with horrific diseases, or rats or rodents, I mean, when in history have we ever seen a horrible, deadly disease that gets spread around a community or a populace or entire continent like Europe due to rodents? I mean, that would never happen, right?
Right. I remember there was something like in the 13th century that wiped out a third of Europe's population.
That's right.
What was that?
The Black Plague. I forgot about the Black Plague.
Well, bring out your dead. Remember those masks?
Yes, with the big noses on them.
Beak. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what we were just wearing 2 years ago. But no, don't worry. It wasn't the rodents. It was the fleas on the rodents that were spreading the disease.
Yeah,
of course.
Right. But those masks in the 13th century, they had flair. Really. They did it better back then.
They were pretty fancy. Are you kidding me? This is called Prestige Biotech, and good to Melissa Chen at National Review writing this story up. Prestige Biotech, Chinese medical company operating in a legal laboratory in California. Isn't Gavin Newsom? I thought was the best governor in America.
I'm so glad you mentioned him. Yeah. Now I feel better.
Yeah, don't worry, Gavin Newsom's. This has evil Bond villain plot written all over it. First of all, Gavin Newsom looks like a Bond villain. He has a name like a Bond villain. So we meet again, Gavin Newsom. But this time I have the upper hand. And right under his nose, under his authority, and apparently with his complicit permission, you've got this illegal Chinese lab bioengineering mice, 1,000 of them with all of these diseases. Now, this is called an undercover lab. It was discovered in a warehouse just outside of Fresno in a city called Reedley. A garden hose was found to be illegally attached to the building. I do love this, by the way.
Thank God for these ridiculous nuisance regulations.
Yes,
it saved us all.
In one respect, the over-regulation and over the police state of the Central Valley of California did save us.
Gavin right now is like, see? See, I'm telling you.
So they're looking at the illegal garden hose, and then the city manager said that there was a special room that was built housing for 1,000 white lab mice. I do like that the 1,000 white lab mice get better housing than the veterans who are living on the streets. Yeah.
What would the black mice get?
That's true. Black mice matter. She says, this is an unusual situation. I've been in government for 25 years. I've never seen anything like this. According to the official, at least 200 mice were found dead. The remainder were euthanized by the county. Prestige Biotech was the largest creditor of the now-defunct medtech company Universal Medtech, took control of it following bankruptcy. The Chinese-run company did not have a license to operate in California. How long is it going to take for us to find out that Anthony Fauci approved the federal funding for this operation?
Yes, exactly.
Certain rooms of the warehouse were found to contain several vessels of liquid and various apparatus. Fresno County Public Health staff also observed blood, tissue, and other bodily fluid samples and serums, and thousands of vials of unlabeled fluids and suspected biological material.
Was the lead FBI investigator named Clarice? This is so gross.
This is disgusting, and it does. It sounds absolutely like something from Silence of the Lambs when you go into the shadowy room and you start discovering all of this stuff,
flesh and vials of bodily fluid.
But there's so much to focus on here, and I want to start from sort of the beginning, which is this kind of operation does not happen here in the United States without the absolute approval of the government of China. Understand something. You're doing business, especially international business. You realize China is a communist state, right? You realize that they have a centrally controlled economy, that nothing occurs without the government agreeing to it and being a part of it, let alone something international like this. You travel to the States and you're still a Chinese national and you're putting up an operation like this. You're doing it with the full authority and permission of the Communist Party of China. It's coming right from Beijing. These people are not our friends. They are our adversaries, if not our outright enemies. And what more evidence do we need than an illegal biotech lab operating with this kind of danger?
Larry, someone, leaving a garden hose in the wrong place led to the discovery of this lab. Imagine how many others are operating. Mm-hmm. And we know that over the southern border, suddenly they are finding Chinese nationals coming through the southern border. Mm-hmm. We know that China has people in this country, sort of sleeper agents. We know all of this stuff.
Of course they do.
And so you wonder, thank God for the errant garden hose that, got the attention of some regulator. But again, how many of these labs? And we know for certain that China is developing weapons, biological weapons. I mean, COVID.
They were just doing research.
It was just
They were just trying to solve
a vat of soup.
They were trying to find out what would happen if someone else came up with a weapon.
Yeah, but again, I mean, jokes aside, we need to think about how many of these operations are existing.
That's right, we do.
Existing in the United States, all over in major cities, and these. Yeah. Mice can be unleashed.
And when a governor like Glenn Youngkin actually proposes a law that forbids Chinese corporations from buying land near military bases or buying up or farmland for various reasons, they shouldn't be called racist xenophobes just for the purpose of gaining political points. I keep saying this over and over again, and I'm going to keep repeating it because you need to remember this. There was a time in this country where both political parties agreed on certain fundamental things. We didn't have to argue about this.
You're also not a racist for recognizing one country doing nefarious things.
Right. No, you're really not. But we have to say that because, well, otherwise their voice will be dominant and people will actually believe it. Marty McCary joins us at 7:35 to unpack the scary Chinese lab with infected mice. That's coming up later. First, it's 5:15 WMAL. Traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
MAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All seasons, all systems, all tech.
Huh. I mentioned that COVID hysteria is creeping its way back in. I mean, the timing here, I guess, makes sense. If we're going to have our entire electoral system upended again next year and have to rely on, 80% mail-in ballots that are very hard to put any audit trail on, then we better start now letting people know that COVID is back and it's bigger than ever. So here's ABC's Good Morning America yesterday spending a whole lot. I assure you they spent more time on the growing hysteria of COVID and the growing threat to every individual in this nation due to COVID-19 coming back compared to any coverage they had on the Devon Archer testimony and Hunter Biden making money off of his son's illegal business. Here's ABC's Good Morning America.
Now to new COVID concerns this morning. Now, the number of people testing positive in hospitals appears to be ticking up. Stephanie Ramos is here now with a reality check on what those numbers.
All right, now there's a little hidden secret here. A little, and I want to play this one more time. But he just said the most revealing and important part of this story that they really don't spend a whole lot more time on. The rest of the story, and I will play it for you. It's about a minute long. The rest of the story is the grave concerns over how our hospitals are going to be overrun with COVID patients, right? That was the gateway, that we have to lock down, otherwise our medical system and our hospitals will be overrun. But understand something. People are not getting sick and coming down with COVID and then on their last breath, and then they have to go to the hospital because COVID has overcome their systems. No, they're in the hospital already for other reasons. Yes. And while they're there, they test positive for COVID. And Michael Strahan, who's introducing this, who, he's very likable, I know, and he's got a great smile, and he played football, and so, people like him. He's not really, he's reading what's on the teleprompter, okay?
Yeah.
So listen to him because it's a very passing statement. But what he says here is there's a growing number of people testing positive in hospitals. That's not the same thing as people having to be hospitalized due to COVID.
Now to new COVID concerns this morning. Now, the number of people testing positive in hospitals appears to be ticking up. Stephanie Ramos is here now with a reality check on what those numbers mean. Good morning, Stephanie.
Yeah. Hey there, Michael. Good morning. These days, it's almost impossible to tell how many COVID cases there really are. The CDC has stopped keeping track, and most people don't report their cases anymore. So the best way to track the virus is counting people who test positive during hospital admissions, and that number, while pretty small, is on the rise.
And that's the basis.
Trying so hard.
They really are. Well, let's see what's going on over at MSNBC.
Now to...
Here we go.
If you've noticed more of your friends, neighbors, loved ones are testing positive for COVID, you're not alone. According to the CDC, COVID-19 hospitalizations are up 12% from last week. And while we're nowhere near any previous...
now, again, 12% from last week. What does that mean? It means we could have had 100 cases, and this week we have 112.
Yeah, they don't tell you what last week was.
They don't give you the raw numbers.
Yes,
they don't give you the raw numbers. Sorry, you fooled us once, some of us, not anymore. No.
Do you have more from the clip?
I do. Well, only this part. It's the most important part.
Many people don't even have any symptoms. A mask can be your best friend. Keep it private. Back in time, we had them in our pockets, in our coats, in our backpacks. Time to bring them out again, especially as the school season starts. We don't want to see kids missing school for things that we could have prevented.
There we go. There we go. And let me tell you, this is why I asked if it was over, because I have seen more masks probably this and last week. In, of course, Alexandria, where everybody gets super excited when COVID numbers start to rise, or don't, but they're told they are. I have seen more masks in the grocery store and around town. So it's interesting. These are the channels liberal, super dark blue Alexandria and Northern Virginia folks listen to. So it's having the effect. It's anecdotal. I just feel like I've seen more. But it is jarring. I will say, like, you do notice now if the mask wearing ticks up a bit, because nobody wears a mask anymore except in these certain areas.
Yes.
Northern Virginia being one of them. Have you noticed?
I was just at the Maryland MVA getting my driver's license renewed, and half of the people working there were wearing masks.
Oh,
behind
well,
the counter.
yes. Yeah,
The government employees.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all.
Dr. Marty McCary will come up, coming up at 7:35 to sort of
laugh along with us.
I hope it's 5:23, and give you some good medical direction on all of this. And as you're going to want to hear that, please tune in at 7:35. Right now it's 5:20. You know, Julie, let me just finish this up here with some more data about these hospitalizations, because it's even more fascinating that they're intent on panicking people. For the weekend of July 22nd, as we just heard, COVID hospitalizations, which is actually not the right way to describe this, people in hospitals with COVID, rose to 8,000, right? That's the 12% increase. Mm-hmm. That's actually the seventh lowest number recorded since August of 2020. Okay, so it's the seventh lowest number we've ever had for a month in the last 3 years. But they're still screaming, oh, my God, it's 12% higher than...
We should panic.
Right.
We should panic.
We should panic. Even more than that, COVID deaths this last month, 494 deaths. That's actually the lowest since the beginning of the pandemic. But again, panic, get out the masks, and, well, the entire election next year should be mail-in. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here to me, Larry O'Connor, and she, Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
All right, what do we got in store for us? A busy morning as usual. At 7:05, John Solomon will be here on the Biden scandals. 7:35, Dr. Marty McCary on, well, everything we just talked about. COVID hysteria growing. 8:05, Peter Schweitzer. 8:35, Molly Hemingway. All right, so the developments now in the Biden scandals involved a exclusive interview with Tucker Carlson on Twitter. This is with Devon Archer, the former business partner of Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden, Devon Archer testifies behind closed doors. The news cycle picks up all of it. Then Tuesday, of course, Jack Smith comes in with his indictments against Donald Trump, seemingly changing the subject. But then, boom, yesterday, we're right back with the Devon Archer story, this time with Tucker Carlson. And as our wonderful executive producer, Heather Hunter, pointed out this morning, what's Fox's opinion of this right now? It's the fact that Tucker was able to get this exclusive. That's a good get, as they say in the business, and probably one that would have really gotten some good ratings on cable news.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Here's Tucker in we've broken this. It's about 12 minutes long in total, but here are some key elements.
So you worked with Hunter Biden in a bunch of different businesses. What were the specific skills that he brought to clients?
Well, at the end of the day, he had a career in Washington, graduated Yale Law School, and had a very big network in D.C., and brought that know-how and understanding of D.C. and ultimately the Biden brand.
The know-how, so as far as I could tell, he wasn't doing legal work. I mean, he wasn't in the counsel's office at Burisma, right?
No.
So the network and the Biden brand sounds like the kind of key component of what he was bringing.
Yep.
Okay, just real fast, because we keep hearing these euphemisms that Devon Archer uses. He knows the network and the Biden brand. In other words, he knows people. He knows important, well-placed people.
Yeah.
His dad.
This is nothing new in Washington.
And his dad's friends, right?
Yeah.
And the Biden brand. It's the name. It's what the hell is the Biden brand other than the name Biden and the fact that you've been in business at pretty high levels in this town for 50 years? That's all.
I think the Biden brand also conveys a willingness to be a dirtbag.
That's true. I'd forgotten about that part of the brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would have been in those businesses, not having a business background, without his father being in a government position?
It's hard to speculate in those regards. I mean,
No, it's
I think
not.
when we initially met and he talked about his advisory business, his business that needed to transition from lobbying to advisory and the interest in private equity, it seemed, it seemed like a new and interesting network for us to expand our business. Whether he could have, been in that position, it's hard for me to speculate. But obviously, the brand of Biden, adds a lot of power when you're dad's vice president.
Yeah, and again, euphemisms that I want to unpack for you. We want to transition our business to advisory from lobbying, so that we can have access to how did he put it? Financial capital. Or hold on, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and I want to make sure that all the euphemisms are articulated properly here.
Business that needed to transition from lobbying to advisory and the interest in private equity.
Private equity. There you go. Private equity. Okay, so transitioning to advisory from lobbying means that lobbying is regulated. Lobbying, there's rules with lobbyists. There's no rules with advisors. Oh, they just hired me as an advisor. I just give them advice. That's all. I don't lobby. See, and you can tell the difference between an advisor and a lobbyist, because a lobbyist has to go meet with congressmen, meet with senators. It's very public. An advisor is just there at the end of the phone. They're there at the end of the text message, and then they don't actually, they never do the dirty work of having to go to Capitol Hill and meet with people. No. What kind of advisory services did Hunter Biden provide? His expertise, his experience, and then, at Thanksgiving, things might come up while you're watching the football game with Dad.
Yeah, and also being able to show off that you can get your dad on the phone anytime.
And by the way,
that's all that matters.
Access to private equity. What does that mean? More money. You can get more. You can make more money this way.
Yeah.
More money that is not watched as much. All right, a little bit more here.
The initial idea around the business that they were going to provide, the government insight and an additional network to raise capital and then, deal with regulatory issues that you might have at the corporate level.
Raise capital means make money. Raise capital means get people to sign checks and wire money into your. That's why. That's all. What do you mean raise capital? You raise capital if you actually have, a business idea where you're going to open a Chipotle or something, right? Or start a new franchise or whatever. Raise capital for what? For them to use and buy drugs. That's why.
Yes,
that's
and
where
prostitutes.
the capital goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Regulatory issues.
Exactly.
Okay, so that would be more his area.
Right. That would be his space.
Right. But
I'm sorry. All these euphemisms. To advise on regulatory issues. When a corporation hires an advisor to advise on regulatory issues, another way of saying that is somebody who can help you get around the law.
Avoid the regulations.
Advise on regulatory issues is not here's what you need to do to comply and make sure that you follow the law. It's how you get around the law or have somebody change the law for your benefit.
That's exactly right. I was about to say yes, or remove the regulatory burdens.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right. That's advice. Advisory capacity on regulatory aspects. And that's what Hunter Biden brought to the table, by the way.
Did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated...
Because I lived in Washington a long time, around a lot of regulation. Also, a very complex area.
Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
All right, there's more of this, but why are we playing with all of these euphemisms? Oh, so he was in charge of advising on regulatory issues. Did he know about regulatory issues? He led a team that knew about regulatory issues.
One thing I love about Tucker is that just at some point he takes it and takes the baloney.
Right.
And then he just busts out laughing.
Yes.
Because
it's the only way you could react is to laugh.
Well, and that's what the viewers are doing at home.
That's right. But understand that last part. It's critically important. He was the guy who knew the guy. That's what he brought to the table. He was the guy who knew the guy. And who was the guy that you needed to know? The Vice President of the United States, who's not actually supposed to be conducting private business when you're a public servant. It's 5:44.
Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
Well, no, I'm just trying to get a sense of, Washington's not a money town.
Right.
People aren't in business in Washington for the most part, and most people don't have business skills that I noticed in 30 years of living there. So really the business of Washington is selling access. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
That's right. We don't make anything here in this town. The business is relationships.
We make trouble.
That's right. Right. But the interesting point, though, there that I hope congressional investigators on the various oversight panels are picking up on, because I had totally forgotten. His brother, may he rest in peace, Beau Biden, he was the one who was going to be the senator. He was the one who was going to run for president. He was the one who was following in Dad's political footsteps. Beau Biden, he was the Attorney General of Delaware, which is a state that people don't know this or they don't realize it. It is a magnet for insurance companies. Notice where you send your check for your credit card company. It generally goes to Delaware. Insurance companies, financial institutions, credit card companies. When you drive through Delaware to get to the beach, you pass them all on your way there. It's all finance. And that's all regulated. And the state's attorney general's office is supposed to oversee all that stuff. How much of Hunter Biden's dealings dealt with his brother? Again, he's the guy who knows the guy. And as Devon Archer just said, sometimes the guy was his brother. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, about this access thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the core misconceptions. I mean, it seems like when understanding a regulatory environment means selling access at the end of the day. That's how I interpret it. And I think that's how most people in Wall Street, whether they admit it or not,
everybody knows this. And let me I just want to make a point here because we've got more audio to listen to, but I don't want to lose my point. This is the bottom line here. After you hear more from Devon Archer about Joe Biden and about the involvement and about getting him on the phone and all that, which I'm about to play for you. When you walk away from this, if you are defending Joe Biden at this point, if you're a Democrat, if you're in the media, if you're a never Trumper and you're defending Joe Biden, you have two arguments that you can make. Either Joe Biden is a complete and total moron, and after 50 years in Washington, D.C., he had no concept of access, selling access, and how this town works, and which is inconceivable. I mean, yes, maybe you think he's a moron, but even a moron understands how this stuff works.
He's not that much of a moron.
No.
I'll say that.
Or number two, he is absolutely 100% corrupt and knows exactly what his son was doing. There's only two choices. He's either a crook or he's a moron.
I just wonder, when you hear people say, well, it's kind of an open question.
Right.
About why they hired Hunter Biden. That's pretty disingenuous, no?
Right. I think at the end of it, so when you look at there are people that maybe were, sons or relatives or brother-in-laws of other high-ranking officials, but I think what we ran into and with what Hunter ran into was almost like an Icarus issue. So he got it was too close to the sun. It was too good to be true, and the connections were too close and the scrutiny too much.
Yes.
And it ended up destroying, it left a wake of a lot of destruction in businesses over a number of years.
So how many, it's been reported and you have said that there were occasions when Joe Biden would call in with clients present on a speakerphone.
Right.
How many times do you think that happened?
I mean, over a 10-year partnership, I would, the number I'm going with is 20. That's probably the amount that I kind of record. Yeah, a lot, you could say.
So Joe Biden, who's very much a product of Washington, of course must have known that he was calling in to effectively a business meeting that his son was having. I mean, he must have understood that was kind of what his son was selling.
Well, it's hard for me to speculate on that.
Again, the laugh. It's hard for me to speculate. By the way,
is that or cry?
When Devon Archer says it's hard for me to speculate, he gets a smile on his face like the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah.
And Devon Archer is smiling and laughing through this whole thing because he's on his way to jail. He was thrown under the bus. He's the patsy. He's the one who had to be expendable in the Biden-Archer business partnership. He seems to be relishing the opportunity to be able to, at the very least, push back a little bit.
Nobody here is great. Okay.
No.
These are not good people.
No.
Okay. And he went along with this. He saw what Hunter was doing, right? But yes, the fact that Hunter Biden is selling paintings, for $1 million and he's going to jail when the real criminal, the real villain here is the Biden family.
Hunter,
and they've left him.
Hunter came this close to getting a plea deal with immunity for this and any fusion.
Right.
Hunter Biden got to go on a state visit with his dad to Ireland and work the rope line like he was a member of the administration. Hunter Biden, after it was announced that he was pleading guilty to federal crimes, he went to a state dinner with the Prime Minister of India and hobnobbed with the Attorney General. Devon Archer's watching that, said, "Oh, I cannot wait to testify."
Conveying a message from Biden, don't mess with my son. And now Devon Archer, a minor player in this, is going to be eating gruel for the next several years. How long is he going in? I can't remember.
I think it's only a year right now. I think the sentencing is still up in the air. That's why the DOJ's intimidation tactic this weekend, wanting to arrest him before.
That's right.
That's why it sends a message, because his future, his sensitive parts are still in a vice right now that Merrick Garland has control of. All right, so we've got more on this interview that you'll hear later in the show. 7:05 John Solomon, 8:05 Peter Schweitzer, 8:35 Molly Hemingway, and Julie and I are fired up about it all morning long. So go nowhere.